Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Standing Ground Studio. And today I want to talk just a little bit about the Together 2016 or the Reset 2016 event set to happen in DC on Saturday. And I've watched a whole ton of videos on this and I've read some articles, and I think altogether the community has done an excellent job of breaking it down, so I don't really need to add to that. What I have noticed, though, is that there are other events coming up just like it, and I'm going to go over one of them. And also, I haven't noticed anyone really mention that this isn't just an isolated event. It's part of a larger network of events, but also mega churches and these questionable pastors. And everything in their preaching, at least way at the core of it, has an inverted sense about it. And it has very much NWO repackaged for Christianity type of feel for it. And if you noticed in a lot of the videos, and in my thinking too, when you first saw Reset 2016, you just knew something was wrong with it, and you went to dig into it, and yeah, some of it was easy, but it also had this feeling of, I don't know, I just can't, can you see it? Can you feel it? And we couldn't really get our fingers around it and tear it apart like we wanted to at first. And again, the community did a great job, but I don't think that's entirely by accident. The teachings that are going on behind it are actually an amalgamy of all these denominations that have kind of melded together, and they kind of borrow from one core ideology, at least certain preachers do. And they all seem to be connected with money and mega churches and all that. And it creates this effect that another channel, another YouTuber mentioned, I think it was God Rules, creates this effect. You know, the wheat and the tares. And this is probably the best analogy I can think of, because both with a lot of the teachers and a lot of the people being preached to, it's been filtering in for some time, and we can't really see the lines. The lines have been blurring for a long time. There's always at least that one person you just know is compromised in one of these events. The Pope is the most obvious one for Reset because it's so big. But there's another event coming up in Tulsa, I think in August, and here's what it looks like. It's smaller, but it's equally suspicious, and this vision right here is why. This is what you're greeted with. Kingdom Come, Word Explosion 2016. We've got the inverted Empire State Building touching the crown. We'll talk about this a little bit, but Carl Lentz is a part of this one too. But I also want to talk about how the influence was behind it all, which is going to be, we'll just jump right into it. You've probably seen this article right here, the Berean Examiner, and it talks about Pope and Nick Hall and how he deferred to the Pope. You've probably seen that. What I hope to do is kind of like lifting up the hood and getting a peek at the engine behind all this. And this and the other articles I point to, they are opinions, but they're well-researched opinions. And I'll just leave it at that. So here's kind of what's going on behind it. This revival movement to unite faiths is part of the New Apostolic Reformation, the NAR, started by C. Peter Wagner from the Latter Rain movement. It is counterfeit Christianity, and here's why. NAR isn't an official organization, nor can it be characterized by a common creed. It is instead a loosely knit and often unaffiliated network of leaders who share a common vision and goal for the visible church. Some denominations or some belief systems include supernatural signs and wonders, dominionism, the Latter Rain movement, Joel's Army, the Seven Mountain Mandate, Third Wave Revivalism, and skipping down a few, the Hillsong Media Empire. These are all part of a shape-shifting movement in one way or another. It's gobbling up churches and deceiving millions who don't even know they've become part of an apostate and time's falling away. So it seems like behind the scenes, it's a lot of people who know each other, and they start filtering in these teachings that when you dig into them, they're inverted from the Bible. And as one pastor put it, some of it is just NWO teachings for Christianity. That's it. So I'm just going to point out these two right here. They always fall back on these two. It's about revival. Revival on a massive scale is key in this movement. So think of Nick Hall and how he's trying to do exactly that on the biggest scale he can. Often these revivals are held in stadiums and reach millions around the world via live stream technology. They are marketed and produced like rock concerts, like you've seen. All scripture verses about an end times falling away are ignored and get replaced with hyped up claims about the next big thing that's always just around the corner. It's also about unity at the expense of biblical doctrine. It's almost always used as both the how and the why in this movement, and that's perfectly what those videos are saying in the Reset 2016. They just say, just get here, don't even worry about it. Within this apostolic movement, very basically what they're saying is they've reached the Second Apostolic Age, and it matured, or starting to mature as of 2001, according to Peter Wagner, because apparently he's allowed to make that decision. And with the proper church government headed by the living apostles and prophets, it's finally restored. And now they have the power to tell everyone within that network what's coming, because they have this extra biblical ability and these new revelations, which should ring every alarm bell in your head imaginable. And again, so the apostles are at the top of that little hierarchy that they have. So apostles can give new divine revelation or extra biblical revelation, but their distinct task is the implementation of the new revelation given by the NAR apostles and prophets. So they run the church, and it's interesting how it comes straight out of 2 Corinthians. So chapter 11, verses 13 through 15, KJV. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ. And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light. Therefore it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works. It's funny how it's literally they transform themselves into the apostles. It's like nobody's reading their Bible. Maybe I'm missing something. Another important note, prophets are not expected to be 100% accurate in their predictions, thus they can still be considered legitimate even when they make errors. There are some highly publicized erroneous predictions, including these two, Kim Clement and Rick Joyner. And the majority of their prophecies today are not really specific, and I see a lot of that on YouTube too. There's a lot about dominionism, and like you felt with Nick Hall, it's about we have to do this, we kind of have to take over the joint and not leave this up to Christ. It's a lot of inverted teaching. I'll leave it up to you. And then there's the 7 Mountain Mandate, and that's very key when we talk about it. Apparently it's a bit pervasive in all this. I just want to talk about it because the teaching going into the end times is like, we're going to go out there, we're going to take over the joint, we're going to take over the 7 major institutions of society and like take it over. And it's by the time we get to the top of these mountains, we can infiltrate them from the top down, which is completely reverse of end times teaching. And also, it just seems like an allusion to the 7 hills in Revelation. And it's weird how they're getting grouped under the Pope. That's just something I noticed. So I jumped over to this guy right here, Pastor G. Craig Lewis. I don't actually know him, and maybe other people do. He does an excellent video. It's 30 minutes on that's all about it. And his main point is Jesus' kingdom is not here. This is the devil's kingdom. So if you try to get up that mountain, or all of them, you're going to lose the fight because you're just never going to get there. Jesus' kingdom is not on this earth. It's beyond this earth. So here's a quick snippet of what some of that teaching looks like.
What we're talking about here is kingdoms. And the reason this is critical is because you're called to preach the gospel of the kingdom. And the kingdom rules over all of these mountains. But many of us have focused almost exclusively in the church mountain. And as we'll find out today, when we do that, we miss what Jesus wants. He wants you to teach your nation.
I'm talking about the 7 mountain assignment, a mandate that's been given to the body of Christ.
I want to talk to you for a moment about this concept called the 7M mandate.
And the 7 sectors of society that I call the 7 mountains are these.
In the areas of business, religion,
Family, education,
The mountain of media,
And so the arts mountain is really for recreation.
and religion.
Truth of the matter is, we got to move from geography to systems. We got to be like Neo in the Matrix. We got to go into the agent and stop running from him. Into the system. Why? Because Jesus said the Great Commission is go into all the world and preach the gospel.
Every one of those mountains is a place of influence. The way you get influence in those mountains is to get the ones that have the ideologies, your ideologies, to the top of those mountains.
Okay, so you heard what they said, and you're going to hear a snippet of it again later in the next event I'm going to bring up. For the next 28 minutes or so, Pastor G. Craig Lewis, I don't know him, but he does an excellent takedown of why this is flawed and everything about it and kind of where it came from. And you'll get a really nice 30-minute sermon out of it too, so that's a plug for him right there. And his write-up's pretty good too. So he says it's like, he puts it like this, it's basically NWO thinking repackaged to look like Christianity, and that's exactly what it looks like to me. You can check it out yourself. So as we jump back over to this page right here, again, it's this inverted image that we're hit with. And right off the bat, it hits me as totally wrong. It takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, yet they're using the Empire State Building right here. I've heard time and again that's like an occult imagery when it's all about empire. So immediately we're just ushering in an inverted empire, and that's the reset we're looking for. And one thing crossed my mind, and it is a fair argument, it would be a fair counter argument, because again, we're talking about the devil and Christianity, and he takes absolutely everything God does and he inverts it. He makes it seem like it's from the Bible. That's how this is working. So one thought to me was, we are talking about apostles, and there's a huge Pentecostal element behind this wave. So one argument could be that, on the apostles on the day of Pentecost, when they had the new languages, they were able to suddenly convert like thousands of people at once. And I think it was literally said they flipped the world upside down. So like, okay, that is a fair counter argument. But if you know anything about occult imagery and where this is going, this still strikes you as way wrong. And it's late. I'm getting kind of tired. So here's a real quick way I'll do it. So here's Jay-Z in an older video of his called Empire State of Mind, and it's an old video he did. And we know he's a high-level sellout, and he actually has connections to one of the people in this event, which is more incidental. But here he is praying to the Empire State Building in this video that's all about excess and materialism. And he says, "Hail Mary to the city, you're a virgin. And Jesus can't save you. Life starts when the church ends." And here's him praying to the Empire State Building. So I know somebody else can do a way better job of pointing out why this is important. I just know that it's important. And because I'm going to throw it in there and it's all about inversion, when we go into what will be the apocalypse, they're going to flip the world upside down. That's what they want to do. And if you want the single biggest punch in the face of occult imagery in a cartoon talking about this, I invite you to look up this show, Gravity Falls. And it's this little snippet here, Weirdmageddon Part 1, beginning scene and opening intro. And this guy, Bill Cipher, the ultimate enemy of the show, comes through an X-shaped portal, declares the Weirdmageddon, says all time has stopped, all meaning has lost meaning, and I'm going to flip this world upside down. I threw that in there because that's a really poignant example that I recently saw. So again, inverted Empire State Building. Let's go ahead and watch this clip right here, and I'm going to play just some of it.
Once you've experienced the love of Jesus, you might have to go into the street once in a while. You might have to go love somebody who nobody else is loving. You might have to get up when nobody else is getting up and pray for people others have forgotten.
Too often we think of a building. We think of something separate from ourselves. We put it on another outside of ourselves, but the church is you and I.
You are being raised up to go to the top and shift the culture back to the kingdom of God.
Now, didn't that right there sound exactly like the Seven Mountain teaching? And they've even got this like mountain that plays right afterwards. That it's out of context, but it really does sound like it. I'll skip ahead. Capitol building with the obelisk upside down. Then the only image they don't flip upside down is the church. It's probably a smart move.
Come up higher. You were not born to stay at a level of discouragement, at a level of condemnation. You were not born to be a victim. You were born to be a victor. You were called to come up higher.
Wow, just look at that. I mean, does any of that feel right to you? None of it feels right to me. You can pick this apart for what you see. I do see V for victory. Again, it's in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when they're showing the Empire State Building, which nowhere on the site, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see an explanation. All right, scrolling down here, Paul and Ashley Doherty, if I'm saying that right, I don't know. They're the hosts, and it's their church. So again, Carl Lentz, he's that direct connection to Jay-Z, but all these, like, he's pastor of Hillsong, New York City, and he has all kinds of connections. He's the guy who publicly tried to show Justin Bieber what it means to be Christian, because we're luring people into that trap. This is the guy, I played that one little snippet where it sounded like he was preaching from the Seven Mountains. All I know is he has a mega church, pretty much they all do, and a lot of properties. The Treats, Casey and Wendy, prosperity preachers, they have mega churches. They've been around a while. This guy just was a gun for hire. I don't know him that well. All right, so I just want to focus here. Paul Doherty. Let's switch over here to his church website. And now this is him talking about how he has this huge opportunity to start a show on a major network every single day. And if you remember from Nick Hall, remember what he said here?
The same day we got the permit for the mall, all of these groups started to say they were in. Hillsong United said they're in. Francis Chan said he's in. Michael W. Smith said he's in. These things don't happen.
Yeah, no kidding, unless you're connected, right? So let's listen to the great big awesome victory story this guy has.
We had to scale back after my father passed. We had to scale back a little bit on TV, actually quite a bit. And we're on locally and some other places, but God said, get ready. Favors coming towards victory. The seeds that your mom planted, steadying the ship, the seeds that your dad planted, the seeds that he said there's too much seeds that's been planted for victory not to reap a harvest of favor on TV. Get ready, get ready, get ready. We got contacted by Matt Crouch, the overseer of TBN, and by Tom Newman, and then by Brian Houston, who reached out and he said, we're launching the Hillsong channel. It's about to take over the church channel. It's going to be on 74 satellites in 249 nations. It's going to be expanded on 4 huge satellites to reach a 2.3 billion potential viewership. He said, we know for certain already the current setup has 60 million people reach. We're about to launch it. He said, there are people itching to get on this channel, this network. He said, we've had to turn down 75% of world-renowned speakers and pastors because we sense in our spirit we need to put the voice for this generation on there. They said, here's where you come in, Paul. God's hand is on this church. He said, God's hand is on your church. We want to give you a primetime spot between Joyce Meyer and Stephen Furtick and Joel Osteen. We're going to put victory on TV daily around the world.
Okay, in all fairness, when it's full res, his eyes do water a little bit when he puts on that crying routine, so maybe it was real. Let's jump back here. All right, so the main deal with this guy is, when I read into him a little bit, he was raised in this environment from the get-go. His parents, I forget their names, but they started the church, actually. Then his dad got deathly ill, actually. And by the age of 28, Paul took over as the lead pastor. And the thing is, with both of them, him and his dad, they both went to Oral Roberts University, which does come up on some Watchman sites. I don't know it well enough to really talk about it, but it is another one of those Pentecostal, been there a long time, churned out a lot of preachers type of places, so it would have had the opportunity to do what I've been saying. And again, talking connections, I think the current dean of it right now is Dr. Billy Wilson. That's this guy right here. So he's speaking at the event also. Now he has one of his own events as well. That's called Empowered 21. And again, it's another one of these star-studded events where it's all music and feel-good vibes. And it's got a hugely Pentecostal background. I won't go into it here because I really do need to finish this, but if you go into their history, you will get more than a snapshot of where this came from. And again, so it's all these waves that happen. So in the more than 30 years since the inception, the Catholic movement has touched the lives of over 70 million Catholics in over 120 nations in the world. Added these as the newest category, the third wave of the Spirit. So again, there's like a Catholic influence in there from way back. The third wave movement, which was mentioned right here, third wave revivalism. So again, it's a blend. So I can't necessarily say this guy's evil or that one is. I mean, there's some you can, but you can see how the influence is pretty much always there. It's a very global feel. I mean, that's how the design went. I don't know how effective they are. There are large numbers. You can look into it. Just to round this off a little bit, I'll show you a piece of their video. Another one of these. No inversion, though.
May 11th through 13th, join believers from across Europe as we gather in London for a supernatural encounter at the Empowered 21 European Congress, London 2016.
Your circumstances are going to have to say you are blessed. The Holy Spirit came down so we can get up and change the world for the glory of Jesus.
If you will give everything to Jesus, God will use you for his glory.
And God has a purpose for your life. I don't care what death faces you, death has to back off.
Plus Nikki Gumbel, Morris Cirillo, Jay John, Cindy Jacobs, Nick Hall, Peter Vence, Claudio Friedzon, Marilyn Hickey, and more than 50 Spirit-empowered teachers, along with anointed worship by London's own Noel Robinson, Lou Fellingham, Nikki Brown, Ronnie Padilla, Arinola Natanya, and just confirmed Planet Shakers. Join us in London, May 11 through 13 for a lifetime experience.
And out of all the names, Nick Hall is in there. So I'm just using that as a way to get back to where I started. But you can see how the connections are all there. There's a great big wave of influence. It's kind of amorphous and shapeshifter in nature. And it creates that wheat and the tares effect. So this is a peek under the hood. There's the clear engine that's there. And I couldn't find a beginning or end to it. I had to just stop and make this video. So there it is. I'll post some links below. Tell me what you think. Get the word out, because clearly this is... maybe even the culmination of a long-term effort, and how they're going to pull everyone back into more of a one religion mindset, which clearly Nicole is trying to do. And before I sign off, I want to mention that this video right here popped up as I was researching this new apostolic Reformation movement. It's from the Jim Bakker Show, and it's a sterling example of the false teaching going on out there that's setting people up for the great falling away from the church. So just like the NAR movement and just like Nick Hall, it's billed as the greatest revival of all time. And you'll note right after he misuses a verse about the last generation, he gives this dubious quote about how the establishment of Zionist Israel gave birth to an age of fire. And while it's often difficult to pinpoint where a teaching or belief comes from, a lot of the same names keep popping up in these videos. The biggest of which seems to be Billy Graham, who we saw with Nick Hall during one of his Reset 2016 videos. So I'll post a link to that video below for you to watch for yourself. Okay. Thank you for watching. Please be vigilant, share this video, and I'll catch you next time. God bless.